1 Corinthians 13. Today we're going to talk about the topic and issue of envy. Let's read 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 8. 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 8. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. Love suffers long, or love is patient, and love is kind. Love does not envy, love does not parade itself, it is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. It's interesting that in the Greek text, the word love here appears before patience and kind, but not in front of envy or the other 8 negative depictions of these traits of love. But as we talk about this area of the love of God and how love suffers a long time with another person, that's something that a selfish love just doesn't do. We talked about the different kind of loves and how there's an eros love versus an agape love. And an eros love is satisfying our passions or our desires or our sexual fulfillment or our personal expectations that drive us with that kind of an erotic type passion. But there's the agape love, which is sacrificial and giving. And this is the love that is patient and kind and that envies not. Of this erotic type of love, Lewis Smead says that lovers are jealous because erotic love is born of need. There is this gap that sometimes we have in of ourselves where we are feeling inadequate and we need something to fill us, whether it be our work, whether it be our relationship. And so when we're driven to be filled by our workplace or our relationships, we have expectations placed on the workplace, expectations placed on individuals to meet our needs. And when they're not met, guess what? We're jealous or we're envious because we're looking at that relationship to fill that aspect of that erotic love that drives us. And that's why relationships that are based on the flesh, relationships that get together because, oh, you're hot or you're fine or you're rich or you're or you make me feel this way, it's all going to be a taking kind of a love. But the agape love is the giving love. It is a love that comes down from Christ that fills us. For God so agape the world that he gave his only son. So that when we are filled with this love of Christ, we are now going to be able to be givers in the workplace, give marriage, givers in parenting, givers in friendship, and not being those takers that is going to be prone to jealousy and envy. Smead says, erotic love demands total possession, exclusive rights to another person. Right? You ever feel that way about a boyfriend or girlfriend? What you doing talking to, my girl? Talking to my girl? And then this is where sometimes a wife can't share in her husband's work success, but is jealous of it. Or the husband takes a look at how the children adore the mother and not them as much and becomes jealous of that. That kind of love is going to be jealous. Smead says, erotic love wants all. And to miss one dimension of a loved one's life is to sense a threat to the rest. So jealousy easily turns to resentment, anger, and even hatred. But love, agape love, ends not. And we know it's not easy being green. And we struggle in this area of envy. But when we know it's rooted in this selfish love where we want to fulfill our debt, our emptiness, our low self-image, our expectations for a relationship to fill this, then we're going to struggle. But if we were filled with this agape love, I really like how Smead puts this. He says, to be loved with this agape love and to share its power is to overcome fear. Even the fear of loss, even the fear of being left out. In other words, this agape love enables us to transcend jealousy. It overcomes fear as it overcomes self-pity and the insecurity and suspicion of erotic love. So this love is the power of sharing without being threatened. So hence is the foundation of a love that dispels envy in the relationship. Envy has been called by Shakespeare as the green sickness. John Locke said, envy is the uneasiness of the mind caused by the consideration of a good we desire, obtained by one we think should not have it before us. A lot of times we take a look, and sometimes we're jealous of and envious of good things, but we're jealous because somebody had it before we had it. And thus is the struggle with jealousy. Now, there's a slight difference between envy and jealousy. They're related. Envy is a burning desire to have something that someone else has. And so we look at what somebody else has and we envy that. But Proverbs says this enviness is rottenness to the bones. It is an envy of sinners. He says, do not let your heart envy sinners. But then here's the similar word, zealous, where we get a word jealous, actually. But be zealous for the fear of the Lord all day. So sometimes jealous is in a good, and then there's a negative sense. But envy is always used in a negative sense in the Scripture. But it is a burning desire to have something else that someone else has. All right, somebody else has greater attention than you're getting. Or is, dating and you're not, or got into a school that you wish you got into and you didn't come close to that. Got the SAT score that's the talk of the town, and yours is driving the car. Envy walks up and down this parking lot, walk into church. We say, "Ooh, look at that! Ooh, look at that!" And we can envy each other's cars. Jealousy has a little slight twist to it. It's a burning desire to keep what you have from someone else. It's to keep what you have from someone else. Now, jealousy is not always bad. God, He's jealous for every good thing. He's jealous for His glory. He's jealous for our purity. He is jealous that truth be given rather than falsehood. And so He's going to protect that which is His in a good and righteous sense. But it can be used negatively. For example, jealousy of a husband's fury, and then it leads to vengeance. It's associated with cruelty and anger in Proverbs 27:4. It's as cruel as the grave. Flames are flames of fire, a most vehement flame. And so jealousy is used in that way. One author, Aaliyah Hoyt, said there's different types of jealousy. There's romantic jealousy. There's the work or power jealousy, where we're jealous of somebody at work. There's the jealousy of friends, and when they have something we don't, or they get the attention that we don't have. There's family jealousy, which is most commonly seen in sibling rivalry. And we're brother and sister, and I always wondered, how come Mitch all the good looks, and I know he can't help it, and so I really shouldn't be jealous, but there's that sibling rivalry kind of a thing. Then there's the abnormal jealousy, which is which kind of goes down a psychotic delusional path. But there's different types and aspects of jealousy. Les Carter described envious people in his book, Mind Over Emotion, where they really work on their presentation. They find it easy to be critical towards others. They struggle with inferiority deep down inside, and you may not see it or know it, but they do. They readily complain about not getting fair treatment or good breaks. They have this great insatiable desire for success. They want recognition. They need to be in control. They're status conscious, love titles. They cringe at the area of examining their own weakness. All right, I'm not doing really well on this list. They find it hard to pay compliments, have difficulty giving generously, tend to hold grudges, keep score of their own good deeds and the good deeds of others. They like to avoid successful people. They are willing to pass on negative rumors, etc., and prone to pet peeves. And so these can be some of the tendencies of envious people. And maybe with some humility here, we weren't comfortable with that list. But envy comes to places that it shouldn't. And that's why Paul's addressing it here, because there was envy in the Corinthian church. There was a great deal of envy. There was that pomp, what spiritual gifts I have, which creates that attitude of, look what spiritual gifts I don't have, right? If they were boasting about how great they were in their spiritual gifts and how they ministered, that creates that kind of challenge to say, oh, well, look what I don't have. And so jealousy naturally occurred. Alexander Strauch said that jealousy divided the church at Corinth and it belied the Corinthians' empty boast of being spiritual people. And that's why Paul writes 1 Corinthians 3. You are still of the flesh. What you're doing is of the flesh. It's carnal. For while there is jealousy and strife among you, are you not of the flesh and behaving only in a human way? So Paul is chiding the Corinthian church for behaving in a very fleshly manner. James confirms this in the 3rd chapter, where there's jealousy, there's selfish ambition. It's not from godly wisdom. Godly wisdom doesn't lead to a sense of jealousy. Rather, it is earthly, it is unspiritual and demonic. Right? It's of the flesh. This envy is worldly. It is not produced by the Holy Spirit. It's unspiritual. It's not from God. It's from demons. And demons are working today to make you jealous in the church. Make you jealous in the church. Sometimes pastors are threatened by other pastors. We can easily be envious in the ministry. You see someone else with a bigger church. I was just up in Santa Rosa, and they said, whoa, how nice it would be to have 17 acres. And here we are on less, and then, a lot of times I get property envy. Or there are people who, can do far greater things in ministry, and Steve's just the little guy. Sometimes envy can happen even in pastoral ministry. But we can also be jealous of each other on how people serve. And some people are saying, oh, well, I really want to do that in ministry. How come they get to do that and I don't? Or churches can also envy other churches. Wow, well, look at their ministry to college students. Look at their ministry to seniors. Oh, well, that church has a day camp and we don't, right? And churches can look at other churches and become jealous of other churches, and we can't do that. We need to see, well, God has us committed, and this is our family, and yes, we're glad that other churches have other ministries that we don't have, so that we can share with them. We can share with each other. We're all part of this team together, where we're working together to reach this community for Christ. That's why we're different. Missionaries envy other missionaries who get to the field faster than they do. Worship team envy other people's ability. I mean, I'm looking at, I wish I could play that. 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 And I'm, and I'm saying, oh, and they do that so well. I wish I could do that. And there can be that kind of envy that happens. Elders envy other elders. Deacons envy other deacons. Sometimes saying, how come I don't have their power or authority? Sponsors can envy sponsors, or it can happen. Envy can happen in the church, and it did in Corinth, and that's why he challenged, why is there jealousy and strife among you? Jealousy split churches. And as, I see churches crumble, how much of it is it because of jealousy? There's envy in marriage. What? Don't they have each other? And we're not just talking about the suspicious jealousy of, of a wife with a husband with a wandering eye, or maybe the wife is receiving attention from another man that the husband wished she didn't receive. But these are sometimes spouses being jealous of each other. Oh, my wife makes a bigger salary than I do, and sometimes there's that jealousy. Or the homemaking wife works harder than the husband who actually goes to work and says, why can't I just get away from all the pressures? Forbes had the top 9 unappreciated jobs, and the homemaker was number 1. Operating as a CEO and controlling every aspect of that household and not getting paid a salary, and that can espouse jealousy. Or the husband can be sometimes envious of the wife that gets to stay at home all day. Now, he doesn't understand what she does all day, but there can be that kind of an envy that goes on, and even after the marriage is over. There's the jealousy of the attention maybe the weekend dad gets, getting to do all the fun things while the weekday mom makes the kids do homework. And that's a hard thing to deal with. Or even in widowhood, wishing that you had your spouse back when you see other couples. See, envy can attack in all different areas. What is the root of it? And we identified it earlier as this selfish love, this love that tries to satisfy itself. But envy really comes out as an expression of anger, frustration, and resentment, and personally discontent. Somebody else's success, opportunities, or advantage. That's what envy produces. It comes from basically 2 Greek words in the New Testament. Zealous, where we get our word zealous, or jealous, used 34 times, with the root to seethe or to boil. So there's definitely power and energy in the seething, boiling root of this word. Now, it's been used positively to talk about the idea of enthusiasm and competitiveness. And so it's been used in the scriptures where you have an earnest desire in your zeal for me, so that I rejoiced even more, Paul said. Or God's jealous, where or Paul having a godly jealousy, for I am jealous with you with a godly jealousy, that you were betrothed to one husband, that I might present you as a chaste virgin to Christ. All right, so here we see Paul's jealousy of the purity of the church. So it's used in good ways, but it's also used in negative ways. That describes a resentment, disdain, and a bitterness in this usage of indignation or envy in the New Testament. Then there's another word, too, lesser common, and the idea is just displeasure at another one's good. But what is the focus of envy? There are several things that our envy focuses on another. For example, one is another person's power. One is another person's power. Here we see in the situation where Moses was his congregation, members of his congregation were jealous of the power Moses had. And so they gathered up against Moses and Aaron and said, you take too much upon yourself. For all the congregation is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why do you exalt yourself above the assembly of the Lord? And so here they took a look at the power of Moses and said, I wish I had your power. That's what happens in the workplace. I wish I had your power. That's what happens in the church. Who's got the power? Who's got the power? And this is why I appreciate working with the leaders that we work with here. Because then it's not about who's got the power, who's got the authority. It's what can we serve the Lord. He's the one with the power. Christ is the one authority. He says, all authority has been given unto me so that you can be witnesses, right? He gives us power so we can be witnesses. He doesn't give us power so we can become power mongers. And so we saw that, where the Lakers could have been a real team of destiny if Shaq and Kobe stayed together, right? But then there was that whole disagreement of, who's going to be the man, of the town, rather than, why can't we make this work? Because, they're just so, they'd be so untouchable if they stayed together. Or the power between the Republicans and the Democrats and that going back and forth. There's always that attention to power. How is it at your home? Is there that battle on who has the power, who has control of the checkbook? Or kids saying, I wanted that power, I wanted that freedom mom and dad have. I want the ability to make my own decisions, and I want the freedom to choose what I want to do, and so my parents get to do that. I don't want them telling me what to do because I want to have that same power. And so envy happens home, in the workplace, and in the church because we focus on another's power. Also, it focuses on another person's possession. Here we see Isaac being so prosperous that the Philistines envied him. All right? You walk around your neighborhood and you do your neighborhood walks. That's great. May your neighborhood walk not be a walk of envy, saying, oh, I wish I had that, or we need to do our house like that, and we need like this. In fact, may your neighborhood walk be a prayer walk, where you walk around saying, you know what, I'm praying for this neighbor with a real nice house, that they might come to the Lord. Right? And so here we're getting our exercise walking around the neighborhood, but instead of our target being envy, our target is that of prayer. Instead of envy in terms of walking down the parking lot and taking a look, oh, look what they're driving, look at what they're driving. We can walk by those cars and saying, I'm praying for the person in that car. I don't know whose car it is, but boy, I'm praying they'll get blessed at church today. I'm praying that they will worship the Lord with fervor today, and may I too. Right? And so instead of focusing on another's possessions, take a look at those possessions as an opportunity to pray for those individuals. Third, envy focuses on another's popularity. Saul was getting jealous of David because the people in the crowd were singing of David. David, he slayed his tens of thousands, and Saul slayed his thousands. And then Saul said, well, I got pretty big numbers, but times 10 for David? That really inspired his jealousy. During the Winter Olympics, they were doing a backstory on this figure skater by the name of Tanya Harding, whose party, or her, we don't know, well, I don't know exactly who instigated some hooligans to go beat the knee of her biggest competitor, Nancy Kerrigan, right? And, on the ice skating stage, that this was done. We hate that Queen Bee at school, but we also admire her in some weird sort of a way. Or that person at work who takes more credit for the project we worked harder in, right? Or that school project else is taking your credit when you did the nuts and bolts on that school project. So these are the attention that somebody else gets. When we should be thinking, what? The more attention they get, the greater scrutiny they also get. Do we also want that level of scrutiny? I was talking to a pastor who got to know the life of a very successful pastor and author, and said, and he was sharing with me, I wouldn't want that guy's life, because God has gifted him to be able to communicate to the masses and to receive the applause of the masses, but to also deal with the heightened criticism of the masses as well, right? And that person's just executing gifting, where many of us would just be crushed like an empty aluminum can at 1,000 feet underwater. I mean, we'd just be crushed just like that. And so, but a lot of times we focus on their popularity without thinking, do we really want that? I could sing better than Bieber. Do we really want that? Also, we focus on another's performance. We focus on another's performance. Here, the apostles were out there preaching the word of God, and the religious leaders in Jerusalem wanted to just quiet them and wanted to permit them from speaking, and did everything they could in their power to silence people, because these apostles were outperforming them and getting a spiritual response. And so they were jealous about it, like we're jealous of somebody else's SAT score, or of their rapid acceleration up the ladder of the corporate of your business, and it was faster than you, even though you've been there longer. Or you envy the person that beat you out for that sports team, or the student body office, or that scholarship that you hoped would have gone to you. And so envy focuses also on another person's performance. Also their profession. Their profession. So, I'd like that job. Oh, I'd like that job. Oh, I'd like that job. And even people who had similar professions. Some preach Christ, Paul said, out of envy and strife. Some out of goodwill. But Paul says no matter the difference here, he's going to root for all of their success. Also, our envy focuses on another person's privilege. The older son sees the prodigal son who spent all of his father's inheritance money on parties and wild living, then comes home to a party at home, and then the older brother gets jealous and said, how come you never threw a party for me when I've been the faithful one here at home? I've been the dutiful son. I've been the I've been the caretaker while he has been off blowing money, and wasting his life. And so there was this jealousy over this privilege of the returning prodigal son coming home to a party with a good side of marbleized beef, the fatted calf. Oh, sorry, I'm doing the food thing again, huh? And so it's also the same jealousy of Joseph's Technicolor dream coat. This coat of many colors, which takes lots of dye to make it many colors, and dyes were very expensive back then. So to have this multicolored coat, really, and the attention that he got, and then little Joe is talking about how he's going to be greater than them through these dreams that he gets. That really drove them crazy, to a point where they would throw him in a pit, sell him to Midianite slave traders, and report to daddy that he was dead. What are we doing out of our envy to take out our opponent? Right? How are we going to take down the Joseph who's wearing this coat of privilege that you're just sick of and tired of hearing? And then last, we see that envy focuses on another's praise. Why did Cain kill Abel? Was it because he wasn't able? Yeah, he was actually able to produce the same kind of sacrifice that Abel did, but he cannot. So, or he did not. So because of Abel's praise, Cain was angry and ended up killing him. Or that's the same reason that Haman would get upset at Mordecai in the book of Esther, and focusing on another one's privilege and then on another one's praise. And so the real problem is discontent. See, the real problem in envy is that we have decided in our mind that God is not good. God is not fair to us. We deserve this. We deserve that promotion, that attention, that possession, that privilege that other person has. And so we become discontent. And we, as Jeremy Burrow, Puritan preacher of the 1600s, says, we're murmuring, eating out of the good and sweetness of a mercy before it comes, like a worm eats the meat out of a nut. And then when the meat is eaten out, all you have is the shell. And it eats us to a point where we just become an empty shell. You see, this is, sorry about that. There's Abel and there's Haman. But here we see the fallout for envy. Envy brings destruction. Envy first brings destruction. Proverbs 14:30. Envy is rottenness to the bones. Envy is rottenness to the bones. That means it's going to eat us away physically. You know, and it's going to go down to the depths of our body and its foundation of the bones. It's going to destroy us. In 1684, a fellow by the name of Nathaniel Vincent wrote this: "How much of hell is there in the temper of an envious man? The happiness of another is his misery. The good of another is his affliction. He looks upon the virtue of another with an evil eye, and is as sorry at the praise of another as if that praise were taken away from himself. Envy makes him a hater of his neighbor and his own tormentor." Right? As true in 1684 as it is in 2014. 2014? Yeah. And so that's the picture that we have of envy being our own tormentor. As Cain was jealous of Abel and led to murder, as Esau was jealous of Jacob and that led to family division, and Joseph, his brother towards Joseph, Saul, just destroyed himself in the jealousy of David. One author said that of Saul, his envy led to discontentment, paranoid thinking, personal misery, and murderous schemings. And so these are these issues that we see. Envy brings destruction. Secondly, envy brings division. Envy brings division. Back in 1 Corinthians 3:3, when Paul says, "You guys at Corinth, you're still carnal. For where there are envy, strife, and divisions among you, are you not carnal and behaving like mere men?" Envy brings strife and divisions. All right, you want to split a marriage? Envy does that. You want to split church? That. You want to divide friendships? You want to stop being friends with somebody? How often has envy ended friendships? Right? And is it because we have this selfish love that wants to fill our gap and is passionate about an immediate fulfillment for my emptiness, rather than understanding we are filled by the agape love of God, who will give us his divine capacity to love others sacrificially, to see the good in others? That's where unity comes from. Division comes from envy. Third, envy brings depravity. James 3:16 says, "For where envy and self-seeking exists, confusion and every evil are there." Confusion and every evil are there. David Jeremiah recounts this ancient legend about the devil crossing the Libyan desert and comes across a group of his demons. These demons were frustrated in their attempts to tempt this holy person, this other holy man, to sin. They tried every weapon of seduction possible: doubt, fears, futility, etc. After Satan listened, he told them to step aside and watch the master at work. He put 2 sentences in the ear of this man. "Have you heard the news? Your brother was promoted to Bishop of Alexandria." Immediately, the holy man's mouth sank and frowned, and the devil won. And so here is this idea, you might have success in conquering other areas of the flesh, but I tell you, envy is a very subtle one, and it will bring about the evil thing. Fourth, envy brings denunciation. All right, God denounces in Galatians 5:19-21 the works of the flesh, including jealousies and envy. And so it's going to bring about the denunciation and judgment of God. He's going to denounce it and he's going to judge it. So what are we going to gain from this envy we're struggling with? Destruction, division, depravity, and denunciation. So how are we going to get out of it? How are we going to defeat and have victory over envy? First, understand that it has to do with choice. We need to take responsibility for our choosing to be envy. All of us choose to be envy, yes. Or we choose to be jealous. It's a choice. Proverbs 3:31, do not envy the oppressor and choose none of his ways. Lay aside, 1 Peter 2:1, lay aside envy and all evil speaking. So he's saying, lay it aside. Take it out of your cupboard. Remove it out of your house. As you cleared out your house and you brought stuff to the free market, you got rid of it, right? You didn't want it. Same thing in your life. Get rid of that envy. It's a choice you make. Secondly, comparison. Guard yourself from the concept of comparison. Toss away your tendency to compare yourself with others. And we say, oh, well, I really wish I had the power and prestige that they had. Do you really? Can you bear the responsibility of that greater success? Or can we be content of where we are? Or to have this acclaim of everybody, making them popular. You see what popularity has done to people that can't handle it when you look at celebrities. Do you really want that? And so toss a comparison. Third, deal with the issue of carnality. Know that it's the work of the flesh that produces this aspect of envy. So what is Paul's solution in Galatians? He says, if you walk in the Spirit, you will not fulfill the lust of the flesh. If you walk in the Spirit, you will not fulfill the lust of the flesh. All right, the envy is an unspiritual product. Agape love is a Holy Spirit product. Right? And so if we walk in the Spirit, He will produce in us that which will counter what our flesh is producing. He even talks about this carnality, Paul does in 1 Corinthians 3, because he says, are you still carnal? For where there are envy, strife, and divisions among you, are you not carnal, behaving like mere men? The next verse says, for one says, I am of Paul, and another, I am of Apollos. And then Paul says, are you not carnal? So here in 1 Corinthians 3:3-4, this envy is leading to these divisions, and Paul says it just goes back to being of the flesh. Fourth, charge. We need to target our zeal towards the Lord. The Bible charges us to not envy sinners, but to take this zeal, which is the similar word for jealousy, or the same word for jealousy, and channel it towards the fear of the Lord. All right, our zeal, our steam, this boiling part, because remember, the root of this word is to seethe and to boil. We need to be boiling with this fervency towards the fear of the Lord. So it's changing targets of our zeal. So instead of looking at individuals that have the popularity and the possessions and the prestige and the products or whatever, our target is the Lord, the fear of the Lord. And that's what we want to be zealous towards in Proverbs 23:17. And then charity, love. We want to transform our heart with this agape love. Several years back, there was a popular teen girl who was jealous of another teen girl. And it created this sense of envy, and I don't know how public it was, but it was certainly personal, and there was this jealousy going on. And one day this individual told me, what I'm going to do is, because I'm struggling with this jealousy, I'm going to pray for that individual's success, for that other girl to love the Lord even more than I do. And I just thought that was amazing coming from a teenager who would pray for the spiritual success of another teenager that they were envious of. For all of the wrong reasons, there was a right solution of love. How many of you have heard of George Mueller, famous missionary, right? And famous for the orphanages in Bristol, England? Well, he was co-pastoring with another pastor by the name of Henry Craig at this church in Bristol. And more people were drawn to Henry Craig's teaching than to George Mueller. And here's what George Mueller wrote. When in the year 1832, I saw how some preferred my beloved friend's ministry to my own, I determined, in the strength of God, to rejoice in this, instead of envying him. I said, with John the Baptist, a man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven, John 3:27. This resisting the devil hindered separation of hearts, he wrote. All right, and so how did George Mueller overcome the jealousy of his co-pastor? He said he wanted God to bless him. And if you think PK and I could have existed, 28, 30 years together, when, if we didn't want God to bless the other. Sometimes, it can always be tempting. Oh, they love him more than they love me. Or, Vince is going to be more, he's going to be more successful one day than me. We should want that. How do you think Elijah felt when Elisha asked for him a double portion of the blessing? Hey, what do you want, Elisha? I want double what you got. It's yours. And we should want that, knowing that there is no shortage of God's blessing, right? God doesn't run out of blessings. So if he's blessing one, he's going to bless you too. There's no shortage. And so this is the love that moves us in that direction. Then contentment. We need to be thankful for the privileges and opportunities we do have and be content. Another great writer of yesteryear, I love his writings, F.B. Meyer. He was pastoring in the same town where Spurgeon was pastoring, and crowds went to Spurgeon's church. And then this American comes over to England and takes a church in London. His name was G. Campbell Morgan. I mean, I got all these guys' books, Myers and Spurgeon's and G. Campbell Morgan, and he was known for being this great expositor. And Meyer said this: it was easy to pray for the success of G. Campbell Morgan when he was in America. But when he came to England and took a church near to mine, it was something different. The old Adam in me was inclined to jealousy, but I got my heel upon his head. Whether I felt right toward my friend, I determined to act right. And so Meyer prayed daily about reviving his pulpit as he worried about losing members to these two hot preachers, Spurgeon and Campbell. God brought him to a point of contentment to where he was able to write this: see how the Lord helped me out of my difficulty. He, Spurgeon, and Mr. Morgan were so popular and drew such crowds that our church caught the overflow. And we had all we could accommodate. Right? He said, we get their overflow. And we had more than we can handle. Right? That's a great perspective on how to handle that. And then last is the area of completeness. As we find our completeness in Christ, we don't need to envy what other people have that we don't. And so may that be the victory for our struggle with envy. We're going to hold off on that. We're going to have a presentation there from our missions. PK, you're going to go ahead and lead us off on that? Oh, I don't know. I saw you come up. I don't know if you're going to. Okay, why don't you do day camp, and then that'll lead into the presentation for Kaleo.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hey, if you look in your bulletins, under the day camp box,